Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast. So there I was. This is episode 108. It's a lot like yesterday. Because it was.
Because it was exactly yesterday.
Whoops.
Great story. Great story.
Good story. We'll get into that here in just a minute. First of all, we have to thank all the people that have lost their minds and thrown their hard-earned money at us for no apparent reason. We're humbled by it. Thank you very much for going to SoThereIWas.us/Patreon and becoming pilots that help keep our tanks full and our engines running. First, of course, is none other than last week's show, Isaac Lee, Whiskey.
Thank you, Whiskey.
And then Brent Daniels. We had the privilege of meeting Brent at the Cherry Point Air Show.
Broke some bread with him.
Yeah, you may remember that name if you go back to episode, I want to say 12, One Hook on the Wheel. Brent is a young Marine who pulled OB out of that burning airplane. So quite the story. Yeah. So thank you, Brent.
Yes,
You're a hero, and it's a privilege to meet you and break bread with you. We are honored.
Yes, thank you, Marine.
So, and then Alan Sisson, call sign, Fig.
Is it the Vidal?
Vidal Sasson.
Alan Vidal Sasson. Thank you, Alan.
Sasson. Thank you, Alan. We appreciate your patronage. And then Grease from a couple weeks back, flying the bone.
Gricing Grease. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got Richard Jackson. Call sign for him is simple.
Action.
Got to do it.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Thanks, Action.
Yeah. And then Brian Wormsbacher. Bait.
Call sign. Nightcrawler.
Yeah. Nightcrawler. Bait. Bait's a simpler one.
I like bait.
One syllable.
One syllable.
Yeah.
Brian Bait Wormsbacher. Thank you.
Yeah. We also need to thank the fine folks over at FTIratings.com who are this week's show sponsor. We'll talk more about them during the show, but if you want to get your ATP or get your type rating, talk to those folks. Do it in a simulator, an air-conditioned simulator, not a stinky old twin that may or may not have been maintained over the last 50 years. Right?
Smells like moldy socks.
Yeah. You know, what could go wrong?
Everything.
Well, yeah, that's why go to FTIratings.com. They'll take care of you, and they'll give you $100 off if you mention that you heard about them here.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot like yesterday. Wait, what? Why is it a lot like yesterday, Fig?
It was because it was yesterday's forecast. What a great story.
Yeah. So we had Bill the weather guy on with us who joined the Air Force in I think he said 64, 65.
Yeah, ROTC graduate from NYU, took a commission in the Air Force as a meteorologist.
Yeah. Found himself quickly over in Thailand. Briefed Operation Bolo. And I think in our live stream video, we put a thing up about that. But Operation Bolo is available now on Wikipedia and how they managed to stop getting so many bombers shot down under the leadership of a gent by the name of Colonel Robin Olds, retired general, very famous for his mustache, among other things, in the Air Force. Yeah.
Awesome operation, awesome tactics. And you have to read about it because it's truly a great story. They should make a movie out of that.
They should. It was fantastic. It was wise thinking to go, well, we need to figure out what to do to stop this carnage.
But Bill the weather guy had quite the career in meteorology, and he's a professional, he's a pilot, a commercial pilot, instrument rated, has owned CFI. A couple different airplanes. Yeah, CFI. So, and there was a connection with one of our former guests, Sal.
Yeah, remember Sal? Yeah,
very humble.
He tells a great story about he and Sal's first meeting. So that was fun too. So,
yeah, don't ruin it. Don't ruin that. That's a good.
Let's just put it this way. Without ruining it, I will say this: Bill was the weather guy at Channel 12 in the greater New York area for years. Very well known individual. So
started on the radio and ended up on TV.
Absolutely. Got to do all kinds of different things because of that. He got a ride in the Goodyear blimp, got to drive that a little bit. He got a ride with the Blues, got a ride on Air Force One, all kinds of good stuff.
He did touch and goes in Air Force One.
Yeah. And I think you and I should probably let him tell all about it, and we'll just get out of the way and let that happen.
Let's get out of the way.
All right. Here comes Bill, the weather guy. Enjoy.
This here is a true story.
Just like yesterday.
About crossing the pond
Exactly. Like
at
yesterday.
night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly...
So there I was, trying to explain to people on TV why we got 6 inches of snow when I said it wouldn't snow, or to a pilot why they couldn't get in because the ceiling dropped to 100 feet. There I was.
And that's how all terrifying weather aviation tales begin. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire tonight. Where's my co-host?
I am in Kearney, Missouri for another 8 hours and then off to Denver. But we have with us Bill, the weather guy. Welcome, Bill.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you very much. I'm in Merrick, New York, by the way.
Nice.
Merrick.
Out on Long Island.
Long Island.
Okay.
With the
Not
G
Long
or
Island.
without the G?
No hard G's.
Okay.
Long Island.
Gotta love it.
That's a stereotype.
So you were from that area though, always.
Yeah.
Did
I
some
was
traveling,
born-
but came back to home.
Well, yeah, I was drawn back, I guess. I was born very close to LaGuardia Airport, by the way, in Flushing, Queens, New York City, and grew up out here on the island.
Okay.
Short form, went to NYU and majored in meteorology, and went through Air Force ROTC and said, well, I'm myopic, so I can't fly, but I like being around airplanes, so I think I'll go get my commission and do the weather in the Air Force. And that's how it all started.
Nice. What year did you get commissioned?
And so far back, I can't remember. 1964.
All right.
Nice.
What's the sad
roaming
thing?
the earth by then.
Yeah. The sad thing when you get older and you go on a computer and they ask for your information, your name, your last name, date of birth, and you have to start scrolling.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
2010, 2000,
Right.
1995.
I know. I'm a 65 model, so I got to scroll way back. Not quite as far back.
Not
as you
as
gotta
far
go.
as me. No.
No.
That's okay. Still kicking.
Wow. Looking good and
was,
kicking good.
So you were were you actual forecaster or were you?
Yeah. I was
a
I was a weather officer in the Air Force.
Did you do
places.
forecasting, or did your troops do the forecasting?
No. The meteorologist did the forecasting.
Okay.
The other people assisted by gathering maps and information and stuff like that. But the degreed meteorologist actually did forecasting. We knew how to roll the dice properly.
Yeah.
Is it going to rain today? Or flip the coin.
Yeah.
So we were
Stick the
trained.
pin in the pig and
Well, I know technology's night and day difference today than it was.
Oh, boy.
When you started doing this.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge, or what was the biggest challenge back then? I guess making decisions with not very good information.
That's it in a nutshell. We had observations, as we do now, METARs, that gave you the current conditions. We had some forecast maps from the Global Weather Center, the Air Force Global Weather Center. But a lot of it was looking at your local area, what's going on, how things have been moving. We had fax charts. Remember the old paper fax? I don't know if you guys come out of a machine.
Yes.
Fax charts.
Yeah.
So we'd look and see where that front was and where it's moved in 10, 12 hours. And from that would come a forecast. But, dealing with aviation, it's not like radio, TV, which I got into, because you have to be specific and pinpointed to that 5-mile radius around the airport. So
right.
it was really
What
good.
the winds are going to be within. And I imagine you had to have a certain amount of accuracy to.
They used to keep track. Actually, they would verify our forecast. You'd see a score. But, yeah, the technology has changed so much. Back then, actually, when I started, the first satellite images were coming out. When I give a talk, I usually show it. Go look at Tyros, the first image. It shows Maine, but you can barely make out the blurry mass that is Maine. There was no NEXRAD, so we had no idea where thunderstorms were other than by observations. We had a local radar at Griffiths. I was Griffiths Air Force Base, upstate New York.
Okay.
And we had a crummy little radar that I think they grabbed out of an old bomber. And, it could show a little bit. But now, we have, and also computer models were just beginning to kick in.
Okay.
And the first computer, UNIVAC, back in the late 1940s, was developed for meteorology. And they used it for other things. Yeah.
Okay.
But it took a long time, and they just started to get practical in the mid-late 60s and through the 70s. And now with the supercomputers, things are so much better. And, you guys as professional aviators can take advantage of that, too, by just going online and seeing everything now the meteorologist sees. Satellite images are terrific.
Right.
Full color. They're so detailed. You can see individual cumulus clouds. And, of course, we have radar going up. But the supercomputers giving data for the local meteorologist to translate into something meaningful like the TAF is night and day from where it used to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
yeah.
We've already thrown out several terms that I don't know we've ever covered.
Oh, that's true.
What did I do?
We use that. As you know, Bill, we use a lot of acronyms in aviation and in aviation weather and weather in general. So before we get too far down the road, because we have a lot of non-aviation listeners.
A lot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
NEXRAD,
we try to.
Okay.
METAR. METAR is a acronym for.
Meteorological observation is essentially what it is.
It's usually hourly unless something special happens.
Unless something happens, and it will show you the winds, the wind direction, wind speed, ceiling, if any, the height of the cloud, if any, is available, the visibility, horizontal visibility or the prevailing visibility, atmospheric pressure, temperature, and dew point, and some other things as well. That's every decent-sized airport. And now we have automated systems, even small airports, where there's no tower or anything, you still get observations. But the big airports, Kennedy and LaGuardia here in New York and Newark, they have an observer to augment the automated system to make it more specific.
Okay.
That's pretty awesome.
So that's a METAR. The other one's NEXRAD, I guess.
Right.
That's the radar you see. That's when you're watching TV and you're seeing a radar image. That's from NOAA or National Weather Services, NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or the National Weather Service.
Nice job.
Local office.
Nice job.
Nice save.
That's their equipment, and this is a great machine. The diameter. Now, you guys have radar in the planes you fly, and how wide is the antenna? 2-3 feet.
If that. Yeah.
Okay, if that, and the size is important in radar and other things too.
Hold on, size matters? What?
The NEXRAD radar.
That's what my wife says.
The NEXRAD radar.
It's the width that matters. Repeat. The width.
Where was I? Okay, so the antenna for that radar has something like a 36 or 7 foot diameter.
Oh,
it is super strong. So it can send out a beam and it'll go through the storms that maybe your little radars can't penetrate and show you what's behind it. And that's what you see on TV. Plus, as it scans different elevations and angles. So you get a vertical view of the clouds. And now the new radars they're called Doppler radars because they can measure the movement of the winds around it. They can measure or detect the type of precipitation. There you are. Look at the size of that thing. There's the NEXRAD radar systems. And it can detect the type of precipitation. It can measure the amount of rainfall. It can do so much as opposed to that thing that hardly did anything back 50 years ago.
That's pretty awesome.
It is. That is amazing. Yeah. And then TAF.
TAF is a terminal aerodrome forecast. So when these guys are going someplace, they get a briefing from probably a dispatcher for the most part, right? Company dispatcher.
Yep.
And included there a forecast for the destination, and if required, if it's less than 2,000 foot ceiling, 3 miles visibility or something?
Hey, wait a minute. You didn't tell me we were going to play Stump the Dummy.
2003, I think. But anyway, you need to have another airport that you can land at that has at least 600 foot ceiling and 2 miles. And so you need a forecast for what the ceiling will be, the visibility, the winds, and that's what a TAF is. And it's very specific. and it's updated. If it starts to go astray, it's changed right away. Are they perfect? No, but for the most part, they're pretty damn good.
That was excellent. Excellent.
That was a great description.
It's almost like we're talking to an actual professional here. It's very, very well done.
There's a smaller, that's probably a research radar. I had a kind of rocky start when I went in the Air Force because all of a sudden you're thrown into the real world as opposed to the book learning world. But one of the professors, adjuncts, was the chief meteorologist at Kennedy Airport. So I had a feel for it. But I remember one day, now this is Rome, New York. Not Rome, Italy, unfortunately. Yeah. Rome, New York, right smack dab in the snow belt of upstate New York. And there was local flying going on. I think back then, C-54 or something, some of the base officers need to get their time in. Yeah. And I remember, whatever the day was, it was cloudy, this, that. And I'm standing at the desk there, at the counter, and he comes back in 3 hours after they took off. And it has a piece of ice they took off the airplane that's probably weighed 3 or 4 pounds and had to be the size of a shoebox. And he drops it on the counter. And here I am, a lieutenant, second lieutenant. He drops it. There's your light ice. Yes, sir.
Pretty light to me,
It works pretty. You can lift it.
That's a retro picture right there.
How about that?
That is awesome.
That was back in Thailand when I got over there after
Lieutenant Korbell. It looks like it looks a little tropical. I can see a little sweat on your forehead.
That it was. What else happened?
So what? Yeah, I guess you'd forecasted light icing, and he drops it and says, "Here's your light icing."
Yeah. But I stayed in the reserves for many years. I was Guire, and I know we had a T-38 come in, and there was a little deck of stratocumulus, a couple thousand feet thick, and unfortunately, theoretically, a T-38 is not allowed to go through any ice at all, at least at the time.
Right.
And the 3,000-4,000 foot thick cloud deck where there would be some light icing. If you stayed it long enough, you said, come on, we'll be through that in 15 seconds. Yeah. Okay, go. No ice. I knew one thing. The pilots were going, and they could pretty much correct any mistake that we may have given them. And it was at Griffiths, what was also comforting was I got to deal with all kinds of different airplanes. We had B-52s. It was a SAC wing, Strategic Air Command. Okay, we had B-52s, KC-135s. We had an air defense intercept squadron there, and even some helicopters. So I dealt with everything. But the B-52s were great because you'd fill out the form, and it's like DD-175, I think it's called.
Yeah. You can look it up. Well, DD-175 was a flight plan, and the DD-75-1 was the weather brief.
The weather part. And you fill out all these things so pilots can remember because they're not paying attention. When you're briefing them, they're not paying attention. But you have to fill this form out. And where was it going? Oh, with the form, you would put them if there were thunderstorms or anything like that. But, it was always a challenge, especially on the longer flights. But I was talking about B-52s. Okay, you need an alternate because Griffith's going to get snow. It's going to be 200-foot ceiling, half-mile visibility, and moderate snow. And you need an alternate. I said, Las Vegas. Okay.
Las Vegas was snow in there.
Las Vegas was a common alternate for West Coast flights, but the B-52 guys could go wherever they wanted.
Sure.
I mean, at one point they were doing 24-hour flights.
Oh,
circling over the pole with the bombs on board.
Yeah.
There was always a couple of planes up there, and you'd brief them. This was in the '60s. Yeah.
This was Dr. Strangelove era.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
With the Strategic Air Command assets airborne.
Yeah. And what was hilarious, anyway, they'd be up there for 24 hours. You'd brief them going out, brief them coming back.
Oh, my gosh.
And we would give the wing briefings in the morning. And again, another embarrassing moment. Give them a briefing, local weather's this, that, over the North Atlantic, up over the poles. And nothing much going on today. You can see it's pretty much like it was yesterday, in fact. And then I look down at the date. I say, oh, this is yesterday's chart.
This looks.
Excuse me, guys.
It's a lot like yesterday. Oh, that's great.
In fact, it's identical to yesterday.
It's so much the same as yesterday. It's just amazing. And then Dr. Strangelove was playing in the base movie, and the alert crews were in there watching it and giggling a little bit. But that's awesome. You don't realize you're a kid. You're sitting on a piece of ground that must have had 100 nuclear weapons, maybe more.
Yeah.
Enough to blow up half the planet, and you don't even think about it.
Isn't that crazy?
right? Just
Yeah. Okay. Where did you go? I'm assuming, I know you had a degree in meteorology.
Yeah.
Where did you go in the Air Force for Air Force meteorology tech?
Learned it on the job. Didn't have to. I had everything that they would have got when I got
okay,
out.
so you had the degree,
which
you
they
didn't
liked.
have to go to training for it. Well,
No,
let me ask
no,
this.
no.
Did guys come off the street without a degree in meteorology and go into meteorology in the Air Force?
They did train. They probably did. I'm sure they did, because there weren't many of us coming out of college with degrees. So yeah, I know at NYU where I went, they had at least 20 officers who were getting advanced degrees in meteorology. They took a year off to get their master's degree. So yeah, some people come in. You had to be an officer, and then you could be an NCO too back then.
Okay,
and they put you through weather school. There you go. And after Griffiths, I went halfway around the world to Thailand, which is another story.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So
That's why we're here, sir.
right. To
tell stories.
Tell a story or two.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, and I just want to say, Bill, I had meteorology in college because I got a degree in aviation, and so I had a couple of different meteorology. I really enjoyed it. However, I don't think I would have been a good meteorologist.
Well, you
Just
don't
saying.
know. So much is intuition. The hardest part for me with going through meteorology is the math. They don't really tell you. You've got to take a lot of math. Yeah, it's great if you go into research or computer programming. I didn't have to do much math. I was moving 30 miles an hour in 10 hours and moved 300 miles. That's the math I had to do. But I had to get through calculus and all these things, and it almost did me in, but I managed to get through.
Yeah. I found it interesting, too. I took one meteorology. I found it very interesting, but one of the more difficult classes I took. It just wasn't something that came naturally to me.
There's more to it than the average person understands.
Oh, yeah, so much more. And the one thing that I remember, I don't know. Do you remember, he's passed now. Do you remember Skip Waters down in North Carolina? He used to do the morning news, and he was the weatherman for Eastern North Carolina. And, and
that's why
he
I know
came
that
to
name.
this one time, and he talked about how much they were learning, and this is the late 80s, that they were really learning how much weather is affected more by the upper atmosphere than they'd realized in previous.
Well, it's all connected.
Yeah.
You think of weather as at ground level, but as pilots, you know that the weather is vertical, and the driving winds are up higher. Those are jet stream winds that you like when on your tail, and not so much when they're against you. But those winds control what goes on down at the surface. I have a slide I show people all the complications that lead into the weather. I said there's the solar impact, the Earth's rotation, distance from the sun, the oceans, the mountains, trees, forests, evaporation, condensation. I went through a list of about 20 different things that impact the weather, and it's true.
Yeah. And I just had a hard time remembering the difference between convection fog and advection fog. So,
well, I won't bother explaining that.
Yeah, no.
But you mentioned the Earth rotation actually factors into the weather, and that shoots the flat earthers theory right
do we
there.
Want to get into that?
No, we don't.
No, because
Earth's not round.
You cannot explain how the atmosphere circulates around a low or a high unless it's on a rotating planet. It's called the Coriolis force. Yeah. Everything in the northern hemisphere moving tends to move to the right over the surface because the Earth is moving under it. And in fact, if you launch a missile, let's say shooting a rocket from the U.S. to just across the pole, you have to aim it where the Earth is going to be when it gets there.
Right.
Because
it's going.
If you plot its track on a map of the Earth, you'll see it's curved. Anyway, so as the air moves in towards lower pressure, it curves to the right, and that gives you the northern hemisphere counterclockwise circulation. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite. which must be confusing if you guys ever fly down there. All of a sudden, the highs and lows have different wind directions.
Right, your bathtub in Australia drains in the wrong direction.
There you go. So that's the Coriolis for us.
Yep. I was surprised. The first time we crossed the equator flying, I was duped into looking for buoys that marked the equator.
Now there are some people who scam this whole crossing the equator thing. I know it was in Africa, wherever the equator is, and they would charge tourists money, and they'd take a little jar of water or something, and they'd be spinning, and they'd walk across the equator, and it would spin the other way. Well, of course, they did that. But the thing is, the Coriolis force at the equator is zero. It wouldn't make the water flow any which way, which is why hurricanes don't go from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. Because as they get close to the equator, they would lose the circulation.
They die out. Okay,
force.
Yeah. They'd have to stop and start spinning the other way if they wanted to cross the equator.
That would be complicated. Yeah.
So, well, I'll tell you what, though. So you found yourself down there in Thailand, you said, and this is, of course, in the height of Vietnam, and there's some nasty weather. I've flown in and out of Thailand. There's some nasty weather there. That's subtropical.
They get some thunderstorms. Well, they get the monsoons. In the summertime, you get the summer monsoon, the wet monsoon over Southeast Asia, over Thailand, Vietnam, those areas. And in the winter, you get the dry monsoon. Monsoon is just a annual or biannual weather pattern. It doesn't mean heavy rain, although it's usually have it. So, So over there, I got there in November, so it was actually the dry season. And we didn't have to deal too much with thunderstorms. Luckily, we had a decent radar by then that could scan out to the coast of Vietnam from Thailand, where I was, and actually up into a little bit of North Vietnam. So at least we'd see where the thunderstorms were. And it was while there, as I was talking to Pete before, that I was stationed with one of the more amazing leaders I've ever seen. That was General, then Colonel Robin Olds.
Yeah.
And if you've never heard of Robin Olds, you should Google him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was him. And
look at that mustache.
I know.
Yeah, and the mustache.
That's an awesome picture.
He came. His daughter wrote that book. He came in to the 8th TAC Fighter Wing when it was in disarray. It was a period back there in the late '60s, and they were getting shot down. There was no interest in doing what they're supposed to do. This is Colonel Olds on his last day. I took this picture at his going away party. So he came in and he just changed everything around, and he did it by walking into the room full of all the lieutenants and captains flying the F-4s and saying, "Okay, guys, these missions, I'm going to be the tail end guy here. I'll be the last guy in the flight with whoever that is, and give me 2 weeks and I'll be better than any of you." And they kind of snickered, and he was, because he was a World War II ace. He was one of those pilots who, he described it as, I don't think about where I'm going in the plane. I mean, I don't think about what controls to use to get me someplace. I just think about where I want the plane to be, and it goes there.
Right.
But he was quite a guy, and he came up with an interesting way of getting rid of most of the North Vietnamese jet fighter interceptors, which had been shooting down a lot of the F-105s, the Republic F-105s. Interestingly enough, referred to as the Thud.
Yeah.
Because so many of them were unfortunately making that noise after they were shot down. But it was called Operation Bolo. And the idea was two F-4 wings from Thailand, one from Vietnam, would fly the same route as the F-105s, use the same call signs.
So they look like attackers.
They look like the bombers, the F-105. And that would lure they didn't have a big Air Force, but they had like a dozen MiG-21s, I think, or something.
Yep, MiG-21,
yeah. So they went up, and the MiGs came up, and they shot down half of the North Vietnamese Air Force in one day. And my little part in it was to I did weather briefing. I was working the overnight shift, and they briefed every morning.
Great.
I had no idea what they were doing. I knew there were a lot of people in the briefing room, more than I'd ever seen, but I wasn't privy to the whole concept of this thing. And I do remember saying specifically, there you go, there's a MiG 21, saying typical, this is early January, winter weather up there was 4,000 feet broken. Something like that, tops about 8,000. It turned out to be overcast, which is even better because the MiGs couldn't see what was above the clouds. So, and I had no idea what went on. And then a few hours later, I was off duty, and I heard them doing their victory passes over the airport, where they come in low and pull it up.
Nice.
And I said, something happened today. So
something good happened. That's a great story.
And now I see it on TV. You know, I'll see a program on Smithsonian or someplace. And I said, damn, I had a little part in that. Very little part in that. But
right, but no, it's
one of those happy coincidences.
Can't go without the weather brief.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's really cool.
Yeah.
Brief Operation Bolo weather.
Yeah. Then again, to show how your life is determined sometimes by pure chance. Out of Thailand, I was supposed to go back to Stewart Air Force Base, again in New York. I figured I want to be close to home. What the heck? I was as far away as I could get. Someone in some office someplace took that and said, no, we're sending him to Andrews. They need somebody down there. So another big step in my life was pure chance. They changed my orders to Andrews. Great base, you know, and I was the backup forecaster for Air Force One, and we did forecasts for all of the 89th Military Airlift Wing.
Oh yeah,
which I had 100 lessons being from Bill. And
so Sal's listening in.
My buddy Sal.
Previous show,
yeah.
So Sal and Bill owned an airplane together for a while.
We did. I'll tell you more about Sal in a second, but I blew a forecast for Air Force One once. And after that, I said, nothing's gonna bother me. But there were extenuating circumstances. This was late '60s. I think it was Johnson, I think, and they had a Lockheed Jetstar for little flights, not the 707. And he was going up to New York from Andrews up to Floyd Bennett Field, a little naval station 5 miles from JFK. They had, I don't know if they even had instrument approaches there. But I gave them the weather, and they go, and they couldn't land there because their little Stratus deck had moved in. They all had a plane had to go over to JFK, and all the Secret Service people had to get in their cars and drive over to JFK. And was it a big deal? I guess it was. And the next day there was a meeting, and I had to attend, and the pilots were very good. They didn't mind. They knew what happened. But it was just interesting that I got a chance to make a bad forecast for the President of the United States. So where do you go from that?
Sometimes
about my buddy Sal there. Yeah, I had a Mooney owner at the time. Two of us owned a Mooney. We're looking for a third partner, and got a call or an email actually from this guy Sal Marinello. I don't know. Anyway, he was interested, but he had only flown Cessnas, Cessna 172s. But my other partner was a CFI, so I said, well, let's talk. So he came over, and we'd be willing to train him up into the Mooney, which is a great little airplane. And so let's go for a flight and see if you like it. And he loved it. And at that time, I was working as a TV meteorologist here in Long Island at News 12. And reasonable popularity. And so he's in the plane. Yeah. We land and stop, and he says, I'm not very good with the weather. Are you? And I turned looking at him. Sal, you don't know who I am?
You
He's the weather guy from Channel 12.
Yeah, but the good thing is Sal became serious about flying, and he's got all these ratings now, and he knows what to do with the weather now. So hats off. There we are, back in the old weather center. Oh, one very funny story about that. There were some funny things happening on TV, but the one I'm famous for, and this is on YouTube under Bill Korbell Funny. It was a long time ago when I got a car that had the first remote opening the doors.
Yes.
Right.
And the remote and the little remote we used to change the graphics we showed on air was a little box about the same size with one button. You just press it. So you know what happens. I'm talking about Hurricane Erica. I said, Erica's moving up the eastern seaboard right now. You can see. And I press the button, nothing happened. And I look, it's the damn car remote instead of the weather thing remote. Okay, I caught it. I didn't give in, but then the anchors, my friend Colleen McVeigh and Lee Tyrell, especially Colleen, started laughing, and she would not stop laughing. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, it was a
But,
chain reaction.
Yeah, and so I'll live forever on YouTube under that one.
Oh, that's
Yeah, but you
great.
got your car unlocked.
Yeah, that's what I said. I probably unlock cars all over this parking lot. So now the buttons you use are much bigger with more buttons because you go forward, backwards, all kinds of things.
Can we back up a second, Bill? I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want to go too far down range before I get this. So you were in Thailand. Were you deployed there for like a year?
1 year.
Were those
It
years?
was 1 year. The air crews had to get 100 missions over North Vietnam before they could leave. There's another good video out there called Surviving 100 Missions. I don't know which outlet it was on, but you can find it. And they had, now a lot of the missions in North Vietnam were pretty easy. The southern part, the Panhandle, packs 1, 2, and 3. There were, I think, 6 different sections. They call them packs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hanoi was like the top 6. And so you can fly into North Vietnam, the southern end, nothing much goes on. But when you got, given orders to do the north, it was a totally different story. And unfortunately, back then there was so much input from Washington that they had specific routes they were supposed to fly. It was crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that seems a little off.
So, but surviving 100 missions, especially if you F-105, it was tough going.
So you got there in, you said November of, would that have been
67, I think.
67.
No, 60,
okay.
yeah, 66. Left late after that, and got to Andrews late 67, and stayed there till I got off active duty, and the rest is, they say, history.
Yeah.
So how did you get into flying?
Oh, okay.
Flying.
Yeah, we are flying. Yeah. Well, I always loved. Like I said, I was born near LaGuardia. I grew up near Mitchell Air Force Base out in Long Island before it closed, and I always liked airplanes. And in fact, I got my first ride when I was probably 14. But back then, you needed really good vision. You needed 20/20. Okay. Now, realistically, you fly a plane, you can see 3 feet in front of you, and you're good. But back then, you needed 20/20, certainly for the military. But when I got to Griffiths, they had an aero club. So I joined that first thing, got my license, and after active duty, the GI Bill was nice enough to pay for most of the commercial instrument, and I got a CFI rating too.
Holy cow!
I never really used it, but it was fun to get. And
yeah,
then,
well, it makes you learn.
Then moved out here to Long Island. Got away from flying a bit, but my reserve job was at the time liaison to the New York State Wing CAP, Civil Air Patrol. So I got to fly their planes a little bit, and eventually one of the CAP people had a Mooney looking for a partner, so I became partners with him. And when that ended, we bought another Mooney, me and a couple guys, and eventually Sal joined, and then Sal and I eventually moved into Cirrus SR-22, which is a really cool plane. But I did fly
nice
one
little airplane, yeah.
Oh, it's a really nice plane. But I flew one thing. No, I didn't fly it, but I steered it. That probably you guys never did.
Oh, there you go. He's holding up.
Hey, so
limp.
I got to sit and play. So the one I flew, it was fly by wire. Had a little joystick.
Oh, that's different. This is the old thing, and I was, being broadcast, I was able to get a ride around the city. It had an actual
awesome.
yoke. But what was fun was you didn't use rudder pedal. You just kind of turned it, and it was like an ocean liner. It'd be going this way, and you'd start to turn.
Yeah, nothing happens fast.
This way, and it goes back. And we're flying south towards the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, like at 1,000 feet. The bridge just below. And he says, "You think we can get anything? Can I get it through there?" I said, "Yeah, you're doing fine." So that was fun. And then the other great ride I got was with these guys.
Oh, yeah.
The Hornets and the Blues.
I got a ride.
You were in the back seat of a F-18?
The back seat of, yeah.
What year was that? What year was that, Bill?
2000. Yeah. 24 years ago. Wow, how time flies.
Yeah.
Gosh. But
hey, do you remember who the pilot that flew you was? It wasn't.
I got to thinking it was.
That's about. It was about the time you intake, because didn't he go 7 to
Scott Ind? Scott Ind was his name.
IND.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I've got Pat Driscoll.
Okay.
They sent me a picture.
Nice. Yeah.
Did you stay awake the whole time?
Thing. I did.
Nice.
He said I was in pretty good shape, and he said you shorter people do better with high G's, and it was true. He got up to like 6.8 or something. What was really interesting, he's doing this. I'm doing that hook maneuver, right?
Right.
And he's just talking. There's 4 G's. There's 5, 6. How you feeling back there? And it's starting to. There we are. and I was starting to get tunnel vision. The first signs before you.
Right. Starts closing in on you.
Yeah. But I didn't quite. But honestly, it really takes something out of you. And after that, he said, "You want to do anything else?" I said, "Can you believe it?" I said, "Nah, I don't think so." I just felt like I've been through the ringer. I don't know how these people do it, but I know how they do it. They train.
Yeah,
they're athletes.
Train their asses off.
He said,
you build up
I was going to say, he said, if I don't fly for a week, I have to train back up to this. You just can't jump in and do what they do because they don't wear G suits.
Right.
Are you aware of that?
Right.
Yeah, you guys are.
Yep.
The reason is because if they use the G stick when they're holding the stick as a G suit and they rest their forearm on their thigh.
Right.
If G suit would inflate and move their hand.
And it would move
their hand.
Yeah. So this is the Air Force lucky, but the planes they fly, they have side sticks.
Well, they have a side stick in the Viper. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Cirrus too.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. I had to learn to do things backwards. Well, it's still on your left hand, the throttle is on the right hand.
Right.
And the Cirrus, by the way, for people who don't know, it is the only production aircraft that has its own ballistic parachute.
Yeah.
It's a whole airplane parachute.
Take you out of a bad situation.
It does, And at first I said, do you really need that? Now I'm so comfortable knowing that there's really an out. And no one who's launched that parachute within the parameters where you can, not too high, not too fast or too low, no one's got killed. It saved a lot of people. And just knowing that that's there is also good for
well, no one that's pulled it within the envelope. Yeah.
Right.
I think you said that. Yeah. Because there have been a couple that count on it to save their backsides when they do something bad.
Yeah. It'll take you out of a spin. But again, I think the book says 135 knots for the upper end, but it'll do more than that. Just like they say 600 feet for the low end. Depends what you're doing, but it comes out pretty fast, so even a little bit lower than that. But it's an interesting thing to have.
Yeah.
There was an incident in Denver. I think it was about 2 years ago. Parallel runways at Centennial Airport, which is a kind of a corporate airport south of DIA.
I remember that.
There was a Metroliner that was hauling cargo on visual. It was visual approach day, and there was Cirrus that had overshot his runway, and he was above. And didn't see the Metroliner, and anyway descended into him and about chopped the Metroliner's tail off.
Yeah.
And then he ended up deploying the parachute and landed. And the Metroliner landed, didn't know how bad his damage was. And I saw pictures. I was like, oh, my God. Nobody died.
That's good air, and they saved it. Yeah. So
what's that pic? What's that picture? Oh, see, that's a...
Yeah,
you
look at
know
that.
The story behind that, Sticks?
No, he's shaking his head no. He just put up a picture of a Cirrus with a parachute deployed, heading down.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and
do you still have the Cirrus?
Yeah. Yes,
well, I hope you never have to use the parachute.
Me too. But at least it's there. It's nice.
Exactly.
Get out of jail free card if you need it.
Bingo. All right. Hey, the thing I wanted to do here real quick was just take a moment to thank the folks who help keep our tanks full and keep the engines running and keep this show coming to you. The folks over at FTIratings.com that help you use your GI Bill and get your type ratings and or ATP in a big airline simulator.
Hey there, aviators. It's Fig and Repeat, your co-host from So There I Was, the show where we share all the wild aviation stories and maybe even a few tips and tricks along the way.
That's right, Fig. And speaking of tips and tricks, let's talk about something every aviator contemplating the leap into commercial airline flying has to face: getting that airline transport pilot rating, the ATP.
The good old ATP rating. Remember those days, Repeat?
Ooh.
Getting your ATP with an FAA examiner in a piston engine plane that smelled like 100 low lead in somebody's old socks. You've never been inside of it before, let alone flown it.
Right? Those were crazy days. But you know what? Our friends over at Flight Training International have cracked the code on making this transition to getting your ATP or type rating way easier.
Founded in 1991, these guys have been helping pilots like us navigate the tricky waters of transitioning from military to commercial flying, or from commercial multi-engine rating to the PhD of flying the coveted airline transport pilot rating. And get this, FTI was originally founded to provide type ratings to pilots eyeing jobs at Southwest Airlines.
And talk about experience. The current owners have over 37 years of aviation under their belts. They've flown operationally in both the U.S. Navy and the Air Force, and they've been training pilots like us for the last 25 years.
And they've got an impressive list of clients, from the Air Force and Navy to FedEx, United, and even government agencies. These guys are the real deal.
Oh, absolutely, Fig. And they specialize in helping pilots just like you and me transition smoothly into the airline world. Whether you need an ATP CTP, which is what Congress mandated 10 years ago to even be allowed to take the ATP written exam, or an ATP rating or a type rating, they've got you covered.
And here's the best part of all, folks. They're VA approved. That's right. Veterans, you can use those benefits to make your transition even smoother.
Nice. Oh, and let's not forget about their instructors. These guys are active and retired airline pilots, many of whom are veterans themselves. No 300-hour wonders here, just seasoned professionals who know the ins and outs of flying airliners.
Plus, their training materials are top-notch, all iPad-based, so you can study at your own pace, wherever you are. And their courseware includes everything you need to succeed, from manuals to sample orals.
And get this, Fig, their footprints are designed to require minimum time on site, so you can save your leave for terminal leave instead of spending it all in training.
That's awesome. So what are you waiting for, aviators? Don't waste your time with some designated examiner in a light twin. It smells like socks and 100 low lead. Head over to FlightTrainingInternationalRatings.com. That's FTIRratings.com. And tell them you heard about them on So There I Was for a $100 discount on any course you choose.
That's FTIratings.com for all your aviation training needs. Remember, when it comes to making the leap into the airline world, Flight Training International has your back. There you go. So I guess some people are taking advantage of that. Seems like a smart path. I wish they'd been around when I was trying to do my ATP and CTP. Styx is putting up on the screen the damage to the Key Lime Air Metro liner that had the midair with that Cirrus. And oh my gosh, they should not have survived. But God was with them that day, and they made it back on the ground. And the Cirrus folks walked away. So.
Yeah,
good day for all. An amazing innovation.
We had one here in Long Island who was actually caught on video as it came down from a security camera. Came down. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Door opens. The guy's daughter and he get out, walk over to the side. That was it. Boom.
Nice.
And it was an area where you could not have landed that plane.
No.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey, I did have one slight there I was moment.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay.
Nothing like you guys, if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Had the Mooney out in Cleveland, visiting brother-in-law, and there was a tropical storm that was working up the coast, and we were there for a few days, and it kind of hovered around New York City. So every day for 2 days in a row, there were lots of thunderstorms and all this stuff going on, and wasn't going to go back and handle it. Finally, the third day, looked like it had broken to the point there were no storms, although they developed later in the day. So we're going to go early in the morning and get back. Take off out of Cleveland, and maybe 10 minutes in, I watch as the direction of the DG starts to fold over, it starts to roll. I said, "Oh, I never that. Lost the vacuum pump for the attitude indicator, not the DG. The DG, the directional gyro on a Mooney was electric. That continued, but the attitude indicator, the artificial horizon, was dead.
Showing a bank angle.
Okay, I'm not going back to New York where the visibility is crappy, and so I go back, land, and the person at the airport luckily had another vacuum pump available. And he puts it in the plane, and off we go again. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The only thing I had to eat that morning was a blueberry muffin and some tea. So my wife and I are headed back towards New York City. Now it's probably, instead of 9 o'clock, afternoon, 1 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything. I haven't drank anything. So we're going to Pennsylvania. Weather's great, clear. All of a sudden, the haze enveloping the city right about the New Jersey border enveloped us. So now all of a sudden I don't have much visibility. And it's later in the day now, the thunderstorms are building up.
Yeah.
So talking to ATC, New York Center, and then New York TRACON, and we decided we're going to land at Poughkeepsie, which is north of New York City, and just, spend the night there if we have to.
Yep.
So we're doing the VOR approach into there. It was getting very hazy. I couldn't really see much going on. And he says, the thunderstorm developed just north of Poughkeepsie. It's looking severe. I said, "Oh, great. Let's go down to Danbury." I finally landed Danbury, and I realized I was maybe operating on 50% of what little brain power I have, because I hadn't eaten. I was dehydrated. Hypoglycemia, the whole thing. And I realized
low blood sugar. Yep.
Yeah, you can't do that. You really can't.
No.
Got a pizza at Danbury. Took off again when I felt like I knew what I was doing. We had an ILS approach into Republic and the end of the day, but I said that was really, really stupid. So that was my there I was moment.
Well, I'm glad it turned out good.
Yeah. And the other question we always ask is, you reach for the handle. So with the Cirrus, have you ever considered
never got to the
reaching
point
for the handle yet?
No, never had a scary moment beyond, really, attitude-wise, never.
Yeah. So that's the advantage of understanding weather. So that's a good thing, because then actually I think it was Styx asks, I guess I'll rephrase it because I'm going from memory here. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to all general aviation pilots, light civil pilots? What's one thing they need to know?
One thing I would say, spend more time on the weather than you do.
Right.
If you know you're flying across country, start 4 or 5 days ahead looking at the long range forecasts.
Bingo.
Comparing them day by day. But even if you're not flying, get up in the morning, say, okay, I'm going to make believe I'm flying from X to Y. Let's see what the weather is. What do I think? Would I make this flight? Then later in the day or the next day, look and see what really happened. It's a skill that you can learn. But it takes time, it takes practice. If you shortcut the weather, you will eventually get into trouble because things can happen. But if you understand what you're seeing, I can look at a cloud, I can pretty much tell what it's doing. I know the bumpy ones from the not bumpy ones. I know the local climatology here on Long Island. I know to look at a satellite picture, I can see where the stratus is, the low clouds that could move on the island.
Sure.
It takes time, but it's really critical.
That is sage advice right there.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's aviationweather.gov. What do you use? Is that what you use for?
That's the new one, right? Aviation.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
It's fairly new.
Yeah,
it's very good. Nice prog charts and icy levels.
Aviationweather.gov.
Yeah.
That's kind of the go-to thing. It takes some time to get to know what all is there. It pretty much covers everything, and the FAA says in their regulation, you shall become, aware of all things that can impact the flight, which is obviously impossible.
That's lawyer speak there.
Exactly.
You will know everything.
But damn straight, that's a little lawyer speak.
And every weather briefing, every weather situation is different. If you're just flying locally and it's clear, you can look 20 miles away and know the weather's going to be good. But yeah, I still get calls from all my flying buddies who want to. I understand even people who have been flying a long time, GA pilots, that weather is still a mystery. So, and probably you guys too. But again, you had the equipment and the crews to handle it.
Yeah.
Think of the GA pilot with 500 hours. They're the pilot, they're the co-pilot, they're the navigator, they're the steward, they're the weather briefer, they're everything.
I tell you what, the technology now, Bill, we have in the cockpit with us real-time radar picture on our iPad and all the
we do too.
As long as you have a Wi-Fi signal, you're good.
Well, we get it from a satellite. We get it from the satellite.
Yeah.
And you get the radar in the cockpit. Just remember that it can be 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes late.
Right.
It takes that time to redevelop.
Yeah.
But
that's a whole lot better than 2 hours old when you get there.
Right.
That flight back to New York I was telling you about, I said, geez, I wish I could see in the airplane. It took 40 years, but there it was. The 30 years later, there it was.
No, the innovations are amazing and wonderful. But I don't see Fig and I both fly both airliners and light civils. And how many airline pilots get themselves into trouble because they don't respect that a light civil doesn't have near the capability that a jet has? You
get lulled into a false sense of security because you think you have all the information.
I can do anything. I got 12,000 hours. I got plenty of experience. I'll be fine. Yeah, except when you won't be. So
the Cirrus is a very interesting plane. They've kind of made it so that you can climb to 500 feet and put on an autopilot. It'll take you wherever you want to go and shoot the approach for you.
Nice.
It's pretty impressive. But of course, you still should know how to fly the darn thing. That's what I'm a little worried about in the future when they're talking about flying cars and all these things. People are going to get into these things. Man, if they fly a plane like they drive a car,
I'm still skeptical of all this automation flying things.
AI is only so good.
Yeah. So we got these global UAVs that are flying all over the place, and you don't need a pilot. Well, let me tell you a quick story about that. I'm waiting to take off. I'm in an Air Guard C-130, and we're getting ready to launch on a mission down in Fort Huachuca, which is Sierra Vista, Arizona, south of Tucson. It's right on the border. And Tower said, "Stand by." So we're listening, and we hear the conversation between the pilot flying this giant UAV and basically he says, "Yeah, we've lost link." So I'm not quite sure where it is. and so while this conversation's going on, my co-pilot says, "Hey, look at that!" And we looked on short final. Here comes this giant UAV, and it's about the size of a Cessna 182 or something. It lands. Lands and rolls out and stops on the runway right in front of us. Meanwhile, these guys were having this conversation about, I've lost a link. I'm trying to get it back. I don't know where it is, this, that, and the other. And finally, when there was a break, I said, "Hey, I think I know where your drone is." Just going, "Well, there's a drone sitting on, runway 27 right in front of me at intersection, Alpha 2. Stand by." And then they cooked it. So what happened was they lost a link, and it says, "I'm going home."
Yeah.
And so it went home and it landed, but of course it wasn't talking to anybody, right? Nobody knew where it was. It just came back and landed. So flying cars and VTOL helicopters that are electric that are going to shuffle people back and forth with all this automation. I think it's going to be a disaster.
It's going to take some time to make it. Cirrus. I don't mean to be plugging Cirrus because I can't afford a Cirrus jet, but they have a jet, and it has an auto land system. You guys probably have read about it. Yeah. If needed, you press.
We have auto land capability in the airlines too. When the visibility
but you press a button with. Yeah, you press a button with this, it takes over the plane. It squawks the emergency signal. It contacts air traffic control on the right frequency. It searches for an airport suitable for the plane. It checks the weather. It flies to the airport, talking to ATC all the time, and lands. Boom.
What could go wrong with this picture?
Well,
that's a lot. That's a lot of things.
It seems to do it. It seems to do it.
It does seem to do it until someone with nefarious intent goes, I know how to hack that.
I don't know. So there you go. There's the
there it is right there.
It's a cool airplane, but yeah.
You've got a few $1 million lying around. You can get one.
Is that so you said that's a Cirrus jet. Did that used to be called something else?
No, they built that from scratch.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Nice.
That's pretty fam-dancy.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. So, no kidding.
Here's another hat, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what that is? U.S. Space Force.
Yeah.
That's like
there you
Star
go.
Trek. Look at the thing there.
Yeah.
Weird. It does look a lot like
The Star Trek
Trek.
shield. Yeah, very cool. Okay.
what's it?
Oh, you got to send me a picture of
there you
that,
go.
Bill, so I can include it in the podcast itself. So,
Okay.
yeah,
That's awesome.
that's great. Or maybe Sticks can grab the logo for the U.S. Space
Yeah, he
Force.
probably
That's
can.
cool.
Yeah.
So, oh man, that's awesome. So you got out of the Air Force, went back to New York, and you got your GI Bill, and you did some flying. But what you continue to do for money back then?
Well, I initially worked for a private weather consulting firm in New Jersey that had a lot of aviation clients, including Malcolm Forbes was one, and the Playboy Bunny aircraft. The Playboy aircraft.
Was that
black-
Universal? Was that Universal Flight Planning?
It wasn't
or something
Universal.
Like
This was National Weather. I forget
Okay.
the name of it now. I'll tell you the truth. But yeah, Universal is like that. And a friend of mine who had been stationed with at Andrews lived in Manhattan, and he's a meteorologist too. He said, "Hey, they're looking for meteorologists at WCBS." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you've got a lot of briefings. You have a good voice. Why don't you?"
Traffic and weather together on the 8s, WCBS 80.
You've got it. So I went over there and not really expecting it, and they hired me to do weekends and fill in, and that's how I started
Hey,
radio.
that's awesome.
And I went from WCBS, the all-new station, to WOR radio, which was number one in New York back then. I had a funny feeling when my first day going up there to meet with people. I'm going to walk in there and they're going to say, "Oh, wait a minute, we didn't want you. We wanted so and so."
Yeah.
But
Right.
of course, that was such a big deal, and I was there for 17 years.
Okay. And what time frame was this? So this is probably about 85?
into the mid 90s.
Okay.
The mid 90s, yeah.
And that was radio.
when
That
that
was
ended,
radio.
that was radio. Remember radio?
Oh yeah.
We used to do on radio what they do on TV now in the morning. And then when that ended, I had been filling in at News 12 Long Island. That's covers Nassau and Suffolk County primarily, but now there are News 12s that cover the whole city. But I was the Long Island one. The news director liked me, and he also was a pilot, and so maybe that had something to do with it. But he said, "We're starting a News 12 in Connecticut. If you want the job, it's yours." I said, "Well, I need something somewhere." And he said, "And when it opens up down here, I'll bring you back." So he brought me back. 25 years later, there I was doing the weather on TV, and luckily, I figured out how to point to things on that chroma key.
Yeah, but that's a true art form right there, because you're standing in front of a green screen.
Yeah, you don't see it. People
You don't
realize
see it.
Now they're using big monitors. It's too easy. But
you can kind of see what you're pointing at.
yeah. Back then, you'd have to look at in the camera in the bottom. We had a monitor and off on each side. You kind of fake it like you're looking at it. But,
And you couldn't accidentally wear a green shirt to work.
No, you had to. Yeah, you had to be. Actually, we had a blue screen.
Okay.
I'm not sure. No, was it green? I don't know. I can't even remember now. I think it was blue. So you had to be careful with the light blue. The dark blue was okay. Otherwise, you disappear. It was fun. It was great. We had a great time working with some very great looking, smart, funny people. It was good. Again, none of it planned. Just because somebody changed my next ordered base.
Oh, your orders,
Stewart to Andrews. That's how this all fell apart. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right. There you go. So
nothing by chance, though, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky.
That's great.
What was one of the funniest things that ever happened to you, either on the radio or the TV, or did you want to save that for later?
Well, I talked briefly about the TV.
Oh, the car
thing.
Yeah.
I can't.
No. I think it was pre-show you were mentioning to me all the headset, all the stuff that's going on in your headset.
Oh yeah.
Are they doing it to you? I know a lot goes on during commercial. Hey, when we come out of commercial, you're going to pick it up and such. But is there much director talking in your ear when you're actually?
No, not really. With weather, they'd count you down. They'd say 30 seconds,
gotcha.
10 seconds. And the weather, by the way, is the only part of a newscast that's pretty much ad-libbed, extemporaneous. We don't script it.
Oh.
You get up and you talk about it.
There you go.
Make something complicated make sense to people watching.
Nice. Well, I can imagine, that trying to write it. By the time you write it, it's going to change anyway, right?
All right, I got something for you.
What's that?
I think you can handle this.
Oh no.
I get questions all the time when I'm walking through the terminal and I got my uniform on, or I'm walking to the gate and we're getting ready to go somewhere, and somebody says, "I'm a really nervous flyer." What makes you nervous? Why? The turbulence. Turbulence makes me nervous. How would you describe a turbulence to a non-aviator? And you're an aviator and you're a meteorologist. So how would you describe turbulence to somebody that says, it scares me?
Well, the first thing I'd say, it's kind of like the airplane on a bumpy road. If you're on a road that has potholes and things, what's going to happen inside? Well, the air is always moving. The air can be going up, or it can be going down, it can be going sideways. And as the airplane hits air moving in a different direction, it will react to it. And that's what you feel. And they're built to withstand these things. They're built to withstand much more than you probably ever encounter, in fact. They're very strong. And, there's no way around it. Air crews and pilots can try to avoid it because they hear what other pilots are getting. They get forecasts of where there could be turbulence. But it's uncomfortable, perhaps, but it's not dangerous.
That's excellent.
Excellent. That's one of the best descriptions I've heard
now.
of.
Thank you.
Stay out of thunderstorms, that's all.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and then there's that.
Yeah. Plane go on one side, come out the other side in pieces.
Nobody.
Thunderstorms have, for those of you who don't know, the most severe turbulence around. You wonder how the hurricane hunters work.
Right.
Because hurricanes are nothing but thunderstorms, but they have their techniques, and they pretty much, on the way in, avoid the storms. When they get close to the eye, then they just go straight through. But they're in a very strong airplane, C-130s, and they know what they're doing. But generally speaking, you stay out of it. Clouds that look like cauliflower and building up, you stay out of.
Yeah. That's right.
Weather's terrifying. Stay out of all of it. It's just fly in the clear.
Just stay out of it.
That's what I try to do.
Yes.
Because people I take up in my plane, they don't like the bumps. It's unpleasant. It's different. They're on edge. So. But there's nothing
thank
nice.
You. That was actually excellent.
Does that help you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm no longer scared to fly in turbulence.
Use that for my mother-in-law, who is constantly griping about turbulence. Yeah. And I have said to her, hey, no airplanes crashed because of turbulence. And in truth, it really hasn't. But some have, but that's because the pilots exceeded the limitations of the airframe.
Yeah.
So.
I'm a little concerned about the wings. They keep bouncing up and down. That's okay. When they stop bouncing, that's the problem.
Yeah.
When they're not flexing anymore, that's the problem.
All right. We're going to get another break pretty soon.
Well, we've been going at this for over an hour. Why don't we
wrap this up and bring it back, take a break, and then bring it back for our Patreon folks to do that. And then we'll ask Stick's question. Stick's question is, have you ever seen weather that truly frightened you? So let's answer that for our Patreon subscribers as well. But in the meantime,
we come back.
Yeah, we'll do that for our. So if you want to hear this, join us at sothereiwas.us/Patreon. And for $5 gift, you too can hear the extra shows that we've started doing every week with our guests. But first thing we want to do is thank you for your service.
Yeah, Bill, thank you for your service.
Well, you guys too.
And a salute out to all of our military veterans and their families, to them who support the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't do it without them being selfless at home.
Thanks to Dave Hamilton at the Gig Gab Business Brain, Mac Geek Gab, for giving us the bandwidth to do this show.
Absolutely. And advertising is handled for us by backbeatmedia.com. And
we've added a couple of glossary terms today, some aviation weather glossary terms. So if you heard something else that we forgot to explain, hey, let us know.
Yeah.
So there I was /Sticks. If you want a real answer.
That's the email. The glossary is SouthernAirWest.us/glossary. But email us. Email sticks at SouthernAirWest.us. Or FIG or repeat, that's REPETE, at SouthernAirWest.us. And now Bago, BAGO, at SouthernAirWest.us. Ask him some hard questions. Make him work.
Actually, Bago's a pretty smart guy.
He is. It was fun to meet him last week.
Yeah, it was. It was really awesome.
So, what about merch, Fig? It's bikini season, man. What are you going to do?
It is bikini season. Hey, oh my gosh, there's a picture of the So There I Was bikini. So there I was.us/merch. If it's not there, it's probably not made. Koozies, bikinis, beer mugs, beer glasses, shot glasses.
Yeah.
You name it. Hey, big shout out to Brad Badass Silcott.
Right on.
At BDS Aviation Photography for
got to meet Brad last weekend too. What an amazing artist that guy is with that camera. Good stuff. Thank you.
Finally,
thank you, Brad.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. In the background there, that's the tunes of the two Air Force F-16 pilots, the Dos Gringos that make the Air Force sound good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Indeed. Thanks for letting us use your music, and thank you to Sticks and Bago for all the work you do for us in the background. I don't know, Fig. What do you think? Stay safe and check 6, and until next week, don't fly into any thunderstorms.
Thunderstorms.
Yeah, stay out of them.
Get a weather brief before you go, for crying out loud.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
He said it's over.
Now I have to face stupid reality again.
And we're out. Woo!